Teinkiri. Senior Cartographer Zeth Barr stood before the Galactic Mapping Authority's central projection. His forearms crossed in frustration as he studied the curious blank spot in the otherwise meticulously documented star chart. The GMA prided itself on having mapped 97.3% of the known galaxy over its 3,000-year existence. Yet this region, a spiral arm segment approximately 12,000 light-years in length, remained conspicuously empty, marked only with the designation Restricted Zone, Human Territorial Space. Director Orin Zeth addressed his superior, an ancient Valerian whose translucent skin revealed the slow pulse of their 3 hearts. I found 17 separate mission logs of cargo vessels that approached human territory in the last 50 cycles. None returned with complete data. Director Orin's crystalline eyes narrowed. The humans maintain territorial sovereignty. Cartographer Var, we respect their boundaries. With respect, Director, that's not the GMA protocol. Even species with sovereignty concerns permit basic astrographic mapping. The Duraxians allowed it, despite their religious objections. The Halton Collective demanded oversight, but permitted it. Only the humans refused entirely. Orin's skin flushed a deeper blue, a sign of irritation among Valerians. The Galactic Council made special provisions for Earth and its colonies. It is not our place to question. But why? Zeleth pressed, his persistence a hallmark of his species. 17 vessels, Director. Some of them just disappeared. Others returned with corrupted data and malfunctioning systems. 3 came back with crews suffering from unexplained psychological trauma. Orin turned away. This conversation is concluded, Cartographer. But Zenith couldn't let it go. After his shift ended, he retreated to his private research station, accessing historical archives that predated humanity's formal introduction to the galactic community 2 centuries ago. The records showed early exploration vessels had once freely traversed the region now known as human space. Several had mapped beautiful worlds, rich with resources. Then, approximately 300 years ago, something changed. Vessels began reporting navigation difficulties, sensor malfunctions, and disturbing phenomena. And then the humans appeared. A supposedly primitive species that somehow advanced from rudimentary spaceflight to controlling a vast territory in less than a century. You're obsessed, remarked Lena, Zeth's research assistant, as she entered his station. Her avian features betrayed concern as her feathered crest rose slightly. The Director will note your unauthorized access. Look at this. Zelith ignored her warning, displaying historical sensor readings from the last successful mapping expedition to cross what was now human space. These energy signatures don't match any known cosmic phenomena. And this, he highlighted a section gravitational distortions that violate standard physics. Lars studied the readings. Perhaps that's why the region is restricted. Natural anomalies could pose navigation hazards. Then why not say so? Why the secrecy? Zenith pulled up another file and explained this. The human defensive grid extends inward as much as outward. They're containing something leaner, or protecting themselves from something, she suggested. Either way, the galaxy deserves to know. Zelith's determination solidified. I'm assembling a team. It took 3 months to gather the specialists he needed. Krev Dorn, a brilliant propulsion engineer who could modify their vessel's signature to avoid detection. The Sen, an anthropologist specializing in emergent civilizations. And Morovex, a security specialist whose military background would prove invaluable if they encountered trouble. Together with Lena and himself, they formed a small but capable crew. Their vessel, the Stellar Inquiry, was officially dispatched to map an unremarkable cluster 2 sectors away from their actual destination. Once clear of monitoring stations, Krev activated the modifications that would mask their true course. Approaching the boundary of human territorial space, Leonid announced, as the ship decelerated, passive sensors only. As agreed, the view screen showed nothing unusual, just stars and the peaceful vacuum of space. No warning beacons, no patrol vessels, nothing to indicate they were crossing into restricted territory. This is unexpected, Felia commented. Most species mark their boundaries clearly. Perhaps they rely on more subtle detection methods, Marlowe suggested, his warrior's instincts on alert. They hadn't traveled more than 2 light-years past the boundary when the first anomalies appeared. The ship's instruments flickered, gravity fluctuated subtly, and the quantum positioning system reported impossible spatial coordinates. "Something's affecting our sensors," Crabe reported, his scaled hands moving rapidly across the engineering console. "It's as if space itself has different properties here." Zeel felt vindication and unease in equal measure. "Can you compensate partially?" Krev replied, "But these aren't typical distortions. It's almost like deliberate interference." They proceeded, cautiously, documenting everything. On the 3rd day, they detected a human outpost, a small monitoring station orbiting an unremarkable moon. They gave it wide berth, but not before they captured detailed scans. "Their technology is peculiar," she observed. "Some aspects are remarkably advanced, perhaps beyond even Valyrian standards, while others seem almost primitive. And there's something else." She highlighted a section of the station. "These arrays aren't communications or weapons. They're measuring something." "Space-time stability," Krev suggested after analyzing the data. "They're monitoring the fabric of reality itself." As they ventured deeper, they discovered more outposts, all with similar monitoring equipment. The spatial anomalies intensified. Occasionagi stars seemed to flicker momentarily out of existence, and the ship's chronometers desynchronized from each other by microseconds, a phenomenon that should have been impossible. On the 5th day, they intercepted coded transmissions between human vessels. Liner managed to decrypt fragments. Boundary integrity at 94%. Sector 12 shows thinning. Deploy Anchor Team Alpha. What are they anchoring? Morrow wondered aloud. They soon encountered their first human patrol vessel, a sleek craft that appeared suddenly from behind a small asteroid. The crew tensed, but the human ship merely adjusted course to maintain distance, making no hostile moves, yet clearly tracking them. "They know we're here," Morrow stated flatly. "Let's make contact," Zeth decided. "We came for answers. Direct inquiry may be our best option." To their surprise, the humans responded immediately to their hail. The view screen displayed a human female, her expression neutral but alert. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. State your purpose." Zelith stepped forward. "I am Senior Cartographer Zeth Barr of the Galactic Mapping Authority. We are conducting a standard astrographic survey." The human's expression didn't change. "The GMA is aware that Earth territorial space is exempt from standard mapping protocols under Galactic Council Agreement 47B. We seek to understand why." Zelith replied honestly. 17 GMA vessels have been lost or compromised near your territory. The spatial anomalies we've detected may pose risks to navigation throughout this sector." Something flickered in the human's eyes. "Recognition, perhaps. Transmit your vessel's specifications and crew manifest. You will hold position while we evaluate your request." After the transmission ended, Valia turned to Zeth. She wasn't surprised. They expected someone would eventually investigate. Hours later, they received coordinates for a meeting at a small human outpost. Against Morrow's security concerns, Zelith agreed they needed answers. The human station was utilitarian, with none of the architectural flourishes common to most species installations. They were met by 3 humans, the woman from the communication, and 2 others, who remained silent. "I am Commander Sarah Chun, Earth Containment Division," she introduced herself. "Your presence here is problematic, but perhaps inevitable." "Containment Division?" Zeth questioned. "What are you containing, Commander?" Chun studied them carefully before responding. "How much do you know about multiversal theory, Carter?" The question caught Zelith off guard. "It's theoretical physics. Multiple universe planes potentially existing parallel to our own." "Not theoretical," Chun corrected. "Empirical." 300 years ago, humanity discovered that the boundaries between universes are not uniformly stable. In some regions, they're dangerously thin. "You're suggesting interdimensional breaches?" Krev asked, his scientific mind immediately grasping the implications. Chun nodded. "In this spiral arm, the membrane between our universe and others has been compromised for millennia. When humanity first developed faster than light travel, we discovered the damage and what was coming through. Coming through, Lar echoed, her feathers flattening in alarm. Reality is subjective. Cartographer Chun said gravely, what exists in neighboring universes doesn't necessarily conform to our physics, our biology, or our comprehension. The entities that attempt to cross over. She paused. They're incompatible with our existence. Their mere presence degrades local space. You're containing interdimensional entities. Zeth realized the pieces falling into place. That's why you won't permit mapping. You're hiding breaches. We're protecting the galaxy. Chun corrected. Your mapping vessels disappeared or returned damage because they encountered thin spots or partial manifestations. Your sensors aren't designed to process such phenomena safely. Why keep this secret? The Eye asked. The Galactic Council could provide resources, assistance, panic. Chun interrupted. Mass hysteria, religious upheaval. And frankly, most species lack the psychological framework to process the reality of what exists beyond the boundary. Humans have an advantage. Our cultural development included millennia of mythology about eldritch horrors and cosmic abominations. We were psychologically primed to accept the incomprehensible. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the station. Chun's communication device activated. Commander, thin spot forming in Sector 14. Class stress breach imminent. Chun's expression hardened. You wanted answers, Now you'll see them firsthand. The revelation, the human transport vessel moved with surprising speed. Chun and her team working with practiced efficiency as they guided the stellar inquiry crew toward what they called a containment event. The aliens watched in fascination as the humans donned specialized gear, not traditional spacesuits, but something far more complex. With glittering circuitry woven throughout the material, reality stabilization gear, Chun explained as she sealed her helmet. It protects us from cognitive distortion and temporal displacement. Through the transport's viewports, Zeth observed dozens of human vessels converging on the same coordinates. The spatial distortions were visible even to the naked eye. Now, light bending unnaturally, stars seeming to smear across the darkness. What exactly happens during a breach? Krev asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his growing unease. Chun's voice came through their communication system. The membrane between universes tears. Something tries to come through. Something that doesn't belong in our reality. Our job is to reinforce the boundary and push it back before it fully manifests. You make it sound routine, Morrow observed. For us, it is, one of Chun's colleagues replied. Earth containment handles approximately 700 incursions annually, ranging from minor seepages to potential extinction-level events. The transport slowed as they approached the breach site. What Zeth saw defied comprehension. A writhing distortion in space, roughly 5 kilometers across. It wasn't simply a visual anomaly. It seemed to extend beyond normal perception, as if parts of it existed in dimensions he couldn't quite process. Colors that had no names twisted through the void, and geometries that shouldn't be possible bent the surroundings by the ancient stars. Lena whispered, her scientific detachment crumbling. What is that? We don't name them, Chun said quietly. Names give things definition, boundaries. These entities resist definition by their nature. The human vessels formed a precise formation around the distortion, deploying what Chun called reality and course. Massive devices that somehow reinforced the local laws of physics. Engineers in specialized craft moved closer, manipulating energy fields that connected the anchors into a containment system. The breach is stabilizing, announced one of the human technicians. Dimensional pressure dropping. Zeth watched in awe as the distortion slowly shrank, the impossible colors and geometries fading as the human technology forced our reality's rules upon the intruding otherness. For a brief moment, he thought he glimpsed something within the anomaly. A vast form composed of angles that couldn't exist, surfaces that seemed both solid and permeable, appendages that moved through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then it was gone. The breach sealed. The human teams began recovering their equipment with the efficiency of long practice. 700 of these annually, Fia repeated, stunned. How long has humanity been doing this? Since before we joined the galactic community, Chun answered. When we first developed FTL technology, We discovered the breaches were already occurring. Our first colonies encountered them by accident, with catastrophic results. She directed them to a secure viewing room aboard her command vessel, where she accessed historical records. Zeth and his crew watched in horror as footage showed early human settlements being consumed by spatial anomalies, buildings twisting into impossible configurations, colonists transformed in ways that violated biology, physics, and sanity. We lost 8 colonies before we understood what was happening, Chun explained. 17 million people. The survivors, many chose voluntary euthanasia rather than live with what they'd experienced and witnessed. But you developed countermeasures. Grebob serbed. Chun nodded. Necessity drove innovation. We learned to detect thin spots before they breached. We developed technology to reinforce reality itself, and we created buffer zones, abandoned territories where we can contain incursions without risking populated worlds. The entire restricted zone, Zeth began, is one massive containment system, Chun confirmed. The breaches aren't random. They concentrate in this spiral arm. We don't know why. Perhaps some ancient cataclysm damaged the universal membrane here. Perhaps it's simply a natural weak point in the multiverse. And you've kept this secret from the galaxy, Morrow said, his tone somewhere between accusation and awe. We tried to explain early on. Chun's expression darkened. The Galactic Council representatives who witnessed a breach suffered severe psychological trauma. 3 species declared holy wars against us, believing we were causing the incursions. 2 others attempted to weaponize the breaches. She sighed. Eventually, we reached a compromise. The highest levels of the Council acknowledged our containment mission and granted us autonomous authority over this region. In exchange, we maintain the barriers that protect every sentient being in this galaxy from horrors they cannot comprehend. The mapping ships, Lars suddenly understood. They weren't just keeping secrets. They were protecting us. Your instruments would have detected the anomalies, but lacked the filters to process them safely. Chun confirmed. At best, you'd have corrupted data. At worst, the crews would have been exposed to direct contact with these entities. Zeth completed the thought, a chill running through him. In the days that followed, Chun's team provided a carefully curated education on humanity's containment protocols. They'd visited monitoring stations, observed smaller incursions being managed, and toured what the humans called anchor facilities, massive structures that continuously reinforced the fabric of reality throughout human space. The scope of the operation was staggering. Nearly 60% of humanity's resources were dedicated to containment. Trillions of humans served in the containment division. Entire planets existed solely to produce the specialized technology required. Your species has sacrificed much, Philia observed during their final meeting with Commander Chun. We consider it our duty, Chun replied simply. We were in the right place at the right time to discover the breaches before they became unmanageable. Had we not been here, she didn't need to complete the thought. The evidence suggested that without human intervention, the breaches would have expanded exponentially, eventually consuming the entire galaxy. As they prepared to depart, Zeth faced a difficult question. What will you do with us, Commander? We've seen everything. The secret you've kept for centuries. Chun smiled slightly. That's up to you, Cartographer. You came seeking truth, and we've shown it to you. Now, you must decide what to do with that knowledge. The crew of the Stellar Inquiry debated 4 hours after leaving human space. The truth was simultaneously terrifying and awe-inspiring. Humanity, a species considered relatively new to the galactic community, had been quietly bearing an unimaginable burden, protecting existence itself from incomprehensible horrors. When they finally returned to Galactic Mapping Authority headquarters, Director Orin was waiting, his ancient features betraying no surprise at their unauthorized mission. You knew, Zilith accused. The Council knew a select few. Orin admit those with the need to know and the capacity to understand without breaking. The humans bear their burden with remarkable fortitude. Could you ask the rest of the galaxy to share the psychological weight of that knowledge? Zeth considered everything he'd witnessed. The breaches that defied comprehension, the entities that shouldn't exist, the massive containment infrastructure humanity maintained at tremendous cost to themselves. No, he finally conceded, but I propose a compromise. 1 month later, The official galactic maps were updated. Human territorial space remained restricted, but with a new designation: Protected Zone Spatial. Anomaly Containment Region Navigation, Hazard Human Oversight Authority. No details were provided about the specific nature of the anomalies. No mention was made of breaches between universes or entities from beyond reality. But the designation acknowledged humanity's role and the legitimate danger to vessels that might enter unprepared. As Zeth studied the updated map, Leonard joined him. "Do you think it's enough?" "It's truth, without terror," Zeth replied. "Acknowledgement without exposure. The galaxy now knows there's danger there, and that humans are containing it. And perhaps someday," Lars suggested, "when more species are ready to understand, the full truth can be shared." Zeth nodded thoughtfully. "Until then, we honor humanity's sacrifice by respecting their boundaries, both territorial and in the vastness of space. Along the edges of human territory, reality anchors continued their eternal vigil, maintained by a species that had taken upon themselves a burden they never sought, but unflinchingly accepted, preserving the universe as we know it, from horrors we cannot comprehend." And that perhaps was the most human thing of